Hey guys, and welcome to a new video. Today, the final and last update on my Transcendent Ascendant, which I would call the Aura Stacker with a twist. So, a lot of people have been wondering since I started this entire Transcendence project. We are talking about the Keystone, if you missed that one. That I started with a Pathfinder using Darkscorn, using, all the conversion and stuff with armor stacking thanks to the Iron Reflexes Keystone to get like 300,000-400,000 armor, but I ran into several problems with my character. It started out to be a Scorching Ray character turned into a CI melee character with Viper Strike, but I had several problems with the character. It was insanely tanky, but I could not sustain the energy shield, and I did had very, very poor DPS, but nevertheless, it was pretty tanky, and I was like, how can we make this project to be as good as possible? How can we drag this Transcendence Keystone to the absolute maximum? And I decided to go with an Aura Stacker, which is not really the typical build that I would prefer over the League and stuff like that, because I'm actually somebody that actually hates Aura Stackers just because they're way too strong and way too overpowered. But yeah, my intention was getting the Transcendence Keystone to the absolute maximum, and therefore I kind of had to take the Aura Stacker just because I get my 90% maximum resistance towards other things, right? Good. How do we start? This is not a typical build guide. This is more like I want to share my experience with the build, my experience with Transcendence, and give you some tips if you want to rebuild that one. This is not really a build guide where I say like, okay, this is budget, this is Headhunter, you don't need that, and blah, blah, blah. It's really about how this works and how to put it together, right? Good. I would say a quick reminder, what does Transcendence do? So let's write this one down real quick. So in a perfect world, let's say you get a 10,000 damage, let's say fire hit, right? Because Transcendence and works only on hit damage, okay? Just to make that sure. So let's say you have a 10,000 damage fire hit. So on my current character, I have 90% fire resistance, right? So that would be that the 10,000 damage fire hit would actually do only 1,000 damage remaining because it got mitigated by my fire resistance. And what Transcendence is doing is giving me, first of all, 5 to all maximum elemental resistance, but if you have enough aura effect, you will maintain your 90% max resistance, although you have Transcendence. That means I would technically be at 95, right? Although 90 is the hard cap. So Transcendence will say armor applies to fire, cold, and lightning damage taken from hits instead of physical damage, right? That means if I'm stacking armor, it will not give me physical damage reduction, it will apply to the elemental damage reduction after the reduced damage of resistance. So that means with 58,000, it kind of depends on how hard do you get hit, okay? So if it's small hits, like, I don't know, like a couple thousand damage or so, you're gonna mitigate 90% of that. If, let's say you want to fight an Owl on Delph 2000 and he's actually hitting you for a freaking million, then your armor will not really mitigate a lot of that. So the Pathfinder in that regard, having over 300,000-400,000 armor, will be a lot tankier against these massive hits. But overall, we just leveled up to level 100. I didn't die a single time after like, well, actually, from level 85 to 100, it was deathless with the simulacrums and all that stuff. But obviously, when we did our testings, we obviously died, because that was the reason for it, right? We can try to face tank everything, just see what we cannot face tank. And if you're wondering, will this video include any gameplay? No, it will not. This is really about the theory part. I uploaded a video 4 days ago with over an hour, 1.5 hours, where we're just gonna do testing, so this is plenty of gameplay for those that are just here for the footage, basically, right? Good. So, what that means, if we're running like 60,000 armor, that would mean that we're gonna have another 90% damage mitigation through armor, basically. I think it's armor, and mitigation is big M, because, like, yeah, whatever. So that means we have 100 damage left. So from the 10,000 damage fire hit, we reduce it by 90% because of our resistance. We have 1,000 damage left over, and then we mitigate it again by 90%, leaving it on a 100 damage base, which is essentially a 99% damage reduction. So that basically means that if you say a normal Aura Stacker is already tanky with 90 max resistance, that is true, but my version is basically 10 times more tanky than the typical Aura Stacker, because I'm not mitigating 90% of the damage, I'm mitigating 99% of the damage. So if you're in, I would say this is probably the most tankiest character that I personally have ever played, and there is a lot more than just energy shield, right? Because if you say like, hey, mbX says his character is tanky and he has 5k ES running CI, that cannot be tanky, right? But the thing is, if you reduce the incoming damage by such a shit ton, like 99%, you don't really need a lot of ES, right? I would feel safe with this character running 2000 ES, but I have like 5000 at the moment, right? Good. So that means we have 2 spots open where we are vulnerable, and this is physical damage, because we know our armor will not reduce the incoming physical damage. And the second point is chaos damage. Well, chaos damage is not really a problem because we run CI, that means we're immune to chaos. So chaos damage falls off completely, right? So the only thing that's left is physical damage. How can we mitigate the physical damage in the long term, right? Since armor, as I said, doesn't do anything. So one part would be, let's say you are stacking over 500% plus aura effect. So what that would do is, since we are a Scion and we have the Guardian sub-ascendancy, it will say, auras from your skills grant 1% physical damage reduction to you and your allies, right? Thing is though, this scales with aura effect. So every time I reach a checkpoint, which is every 100% aura effect, this will not give me 1% physical damage reduction, it will give me 2%, 3%, 4%. And on 500% aura effect, this will actually give me 5% physical damage reduction per aura, right? So that means at a certain point, when I activate many auras, like, I don't know, like everything that we have here, basically, right? Which is Hatred, Zealotry, Determination, Purity of Elements, Purity of Fire, like whatever auras, right? Every aura that I activate will give me 5% physical damage mitigation on 500%. I'm currently on like 400% or so, so I'm having only 56. So that would mean you would end up having like the following damage mitigation. You would have 90% against physical, you would have 99% elemental, just based on the Transcendence, and you would have 100% for chaos because we run CI. So this is the first tanky version, right? So I'm gonna take it a step further and I wanna have 99% as good as possible. And the way I reach that one is with converting the incoming physical damage into an element, right? So, and I'll do that with certain aspects. For example, the helmet with the, it's a Redeemer stat or other stats, doesn't really matter, where it says 10% of physical damage from hits taken as cold damage. On my chest, I grabbed a synthesized chest that has the implicit 10% physical damage taken as cold damage. Then I have crafted this one with the essence of, I think it was Horror or Delirium or something, that gives you naturally 15% physical damage taken from hits as well. Then you have something like a Taste of Hate that gives you another 20% physical damage taken. And then I have the a Corruption on my shield. Even better if you have a double corrupted shield, because it can have like up to 16% physical damage taken. And then I'm running a very interesting Watcher's Eye that I picked up like over 2 weeks ago. You probably remember that one, which says physical damage taken from hits taken as element, basically well affected by Purity of Elements, Purity of Fire, Purity of Lightning. There's all forms of that, right? So what I will do is that I will convert all the physical damage that I would get into an element, which will then get reduced by my resistance and the Transcendence. So that means all the physical damage will get essentially reduced by 99% as well, depending on how big is the hit, right? That is the plan. How well are we doing on this one? So I would say we get 10% from the helmet, we have 25% from the chest. Currently I'm having 6% from my shield, 20% of my Taste of Hate, then I have 34% of my Watcher's Eye. So we get up to like 10, 35, 41, 61, 95% should that be. So that means 95% of the incoming physical damage will be converted into an element or chaos, since the shield has physical damage taken as chaos. So I'm actually mitigating 100% of that 6% because it will get converted into chaos and we run CI, so that doesn't deal any damage anymore, right? So there is only 5% missing and I could get the 5% on the shield. And if we take a look at the POB on what are the tankiness numbers, right? So as I said, my Bleed Bow champion had about 20,000 effective health pool against physical damage and so on. And don't forget, if I reduce it by 95%, which I convert basically, right, there is only 5% of physical left over, and I still have like 56% physical damage mitigation for that 5%, right? So even though I cannot convert 100%, I'm still mitigating shit tons of, and as I said, I didn't die a single time. We are now level 100, so this is actually quite insane. So what does that mean in numbers? As I said, for my Bleed Bow champion, I had about 20,000 effective life pool. If I go to calculations, you see... Wait, there is something wrong over here. Wait a second. With Brine King... There's like way too low. Wait a second. Something is wrong over here. Something is terrible wrong. Because I was like on 500,000... Something is wrong, but what is wrong? We have Zealot's Oath? Why is it only on 100,000? We're taking way too much damage. Oh, yeah. Sorry. I remember now. The problem is that we, like, how do we get armor, okay? How do we get armor? The thing is, we get it through, like... I just have to go over this process so you understand it, right? I already know what's happening here. So usually you have Iron Reflexes, that is converting all your evasion rating into armor. Since we're now playing a Scion and not a Pathfinder, we're not stacking evasion and we don't really have access to that keystone. I did make some Path of Building. Instead of going to the right side, we went downstairs, right? So the problem is there is no good way, because we need all the skill points to get our voices going, to get our cluster jewels going. But there is a combination with the Divergent Determination, which says you get, I think 10% is a normal gem, 10% of your flat evasion as extra armor, right? So, since we are having aura effect, this is actually 22% right now. And we're gonna get shit tons of flat evasion from our grace, right? And we talk about shit tons, because the 2800 here is just a normal base value without the aura effect, right? So, and what happens here is, this is not getting applied into the Path of Building, so what we have to do, you're gonna see it if we're gonna go over the purity of, where is it? Determination. You see the Divergent here is written red. That means we have no armor, right? We have, what armor do we have? Actually, pretty much nothing. So to fix that, I made another POB like not long ago. Wait a second. Path of Building. This is like not 100% accurate because I calculated it with 500% as long as I remember. I'm not sure. Let me check. We have here the God mode finished actually. So over here I have any jewel that has all the changes applied. So Path of Building, the fork version did not apply any kind of anomalous or divergent or anything of these gems. So I can pretty much just take this one, apply it onto the current POB, add to build. So we now just have to, like, what is it? 1% mana reserved, so I can get rid of any of my small cluster jewels here. Rapture Glimmer. No, wait, we need a normal Viridian Jewel. There you go. Corrupted Blood. Doesn't really matter. So we put in this one, and now all of a sudden, you see on the calculations, we are having over 500,000 EHP, because now, with the jewel that I just added, we are just having a flat, this is actually fixing all the sources for me. Damage penetration from Purity of Elements and Purity of Ice. We get all the chance to avoid elemental ailments. We're getting the evasion from armor and so on. So this is now a little bit mixed, because I think half of the alternate qualities are working and half are not. I think the best way to show it is, like, I have here my stats as fixing jewel. That means all usual aura effects are just increased area of effect by quality, right? So I would say if I would just go ahead and remove all the alternate quality and set everything to normal, because I'm fixing all the alternate qualities with my cluster jewel, we shouldn't have any big issues here. The only difference is I calculated my my jewels with 500% aura effect, which is not true because I'm currently having 400%, but this is just to get going, right? So enable haste and disable Val haste, enable discipline, disable Val discipline. Is there anything else that I haven't checked over here? Should be fine. It's not really the big deal, right? But I just wanted to mention that currently in Path of Building, the Divergent Determination is not adding you armor. That's why the Transcendence Keystone is not working properly, right? So now we have actually 48,000 armor. So in-game, I have 58,000, so it's actually more. But we went from like 100,000 effective life pool to actually over 500,000. So we are actually currently on close to 1 million when it comes to elemental damage based on a 99% damage reduction, right? And why is it only 350? Because there is still the 5% missing that I don't have on my shield. But don't worry, this is already like 20, 30, 40 times tankier than the usual aura stacker. But if we would be able, let's assume that I just take my shield over here, Titanium Spirit Shield, and it would be double corrupted to a potential 16%. So let's make 16% out of it, right? So we are well over 100%. Then my physical damage mitigation is the same as actually my my elemental penetration. It's even a little bit more because don't forget, on my shield, for example, we have Fizz as Chaos. The Chaos damage doesn't do anything, so we are reducing the total amount without reduction, right? So, good. That's the POB. I'm going to leave that in the description below if somebody is interested in that one and how everything works together. But we are like close to 1 million EHP, which is just insanely ridiculous. That's like 50 times more tanky than what I said. My Bleed Bow champion is already a very beefy character. Good, let's talk about the gear real quick and about the items. As I said, the Hubris Circlet is with the Purity of Elements, reduced mana reservation. Why this enchant? It can also be haste or any other thing. But the thing is, with my shield, 50% reduced mana reservation, that counts for my Hatred, for my Wrath, and for my Zealotry. For Determination, Discipline, and the other purities, I have here a 6-socket cluster here, basically, or 1 voices, more or less. We have Determination, reduced mana, we have Grace, reduced mana, we have Discipline, and all 3 purities. And we reduce the mana reservation on our main auras here. So the only thing that's left and the only thing that is not getting reduced is actually Purity of Elements. So that's why I choose to go with this enchant, because it reserves up the most, I would say. Or now the least, more or less, right? Good, here I have Discipline, Malevolence, which is not really the case. The thing is, I'm switching between Arc and Spark. I do like Arc more, but it is whatever you want to play, and this is why I have the Malevolence. Currently, with my mana reservation, I cannot reserve that, okay? I cannot activate that. I need more mana reservation on my medium cluster jewels, for example, so I can activate that in the long term, so forget about this one, actually, once you're playing with Arc like I do. Same with the Voidwalker boots, that is for piercing additional targets and stuff. This is only for Spark and not for Arc. In the end, it didn't really matter at all, just because I'm swapping over gems like however I feel like, or if I'm playing my simulacrums, it depends on the layout, if I would go with Spark over Arc and stuff like that, so don't bother with this too much. The thing though is, most of my currency that I spend on this character is definitely towards the gems and towards the cluster jewels and the jewel setup. We are currently running, I think, 25 different jewels, that is including the voices, the medium cluster jewels, the small, like normal jewels with the 1% RMR over here. With my, the research is also for Spark, then Might of the Meek, Intuitive Leap. So we have like 25 jewels, and you want to have all of those with reduced mana reservation to reserve as many auras as possible. And that means that will just cost you shit tons of currency, right? I'm not really recommending trying this build out. I think it's way too tanky. And if you want to play an aura stacker, just go with a normal low life version, so you have a way easier time reserving all your auras. It will be a lot cheaper than this character, because this character is so tanky. Why, you know? I think most of the aura stackers can already tank the entire content, and especially once you're going CI, once you want to go the tanky route, I would recommend going with the, the Alpha's Howl, since it reserves 8% less mana, and Sakarwal's Chest, it is another 10%, so you will have even more easier time, and then you can swap out to, like, Call of the Brotherhoods with, like, Zealotry and get more auras in, so you get more physical damage reduction, more attack and cast speed. But this build is purely focused around Transcendence, and this is why I went this route. I would personally say it is very expensive, and it is way too tanky, okay? I don't see a reason why you will ever need that tankiness unless you want to go Deep Delve, and Deep Delve hits so hard that you still cannot tank it. Even with my build, what I would say is the most tankiest build in the entire game right now, in League, basically. I still cannot face tank an Owl on Delve 2000, so I think it's just not meant to be face tankable as long as you don't find a way to make an actual immortal build that is going to get nerfed every single league anyways when people find out how to fix that, right? Good, so the rest of the things, since we're an aura stacker, we have purities, we have like 250 all resistance, so the thing is, we have so much damage mitigation that our gear doesn't need a lot of energy shield, right? We have so much resistance that we don't need resistance on any parts, and that's why my gear overall pretty much sucks, okay? If we take a look at the helm, we have accuracy not needed. The 200 ES is fine, but as I said, I will feel confident with 2000 ES, so that doesn't matter in the end as well. The only thing that I care here is the 5% reduced mana reservation that you can get with an essence, or you merge that with like a Warlord's physical damage taken as fire damage, for example, with the 5% reduced mana from the Redeemer if you want to. For the gems, Discipline, Malevolence, as I said, not needed, Haste, and Divergent Vitality. Make sure that you take Val Haste because it is quite an insane damage boost when it comes to that once you're actually picking up your Val Souls. For the chest, as I said, synthesized chest with the implicit and an essence crafted physical damage taken from hits. I just spammed a couple to get like T1 resistance, T1 energy shield, and then some intelligence, whatever. So I'm having here Arc, then Awakened Spell Echo, Control Destruction, Arcane Surge, Inspiration, and Hypothermia support. Because we're not running LM Focus, we're permanently freezing, we have like millions of cold damage, so that's not a big deal on this part. For all the alternate quality gems, please check out the PUB. No wait, I cannot actually, because I just removed all to normal, right? That kind of sucks. Okay, so Arc, I choose the Anomalous here for the increased chaining range, if you want to. The Awakened versions don't have any. Then we have Anomalous Arcane Surge. I think that gives you a little bit of a mana regen. It might help if you have Val Haste up, because you're gonna have like 15 casts a second at some point, so you're gonna need shit tons of mana anyways. The Anomalous Inspiration gives you increased critical strike chance, and Divergent Hypothermia gives you also enemies frozen by your skills have 4% to cold resistance, or negative 4%, which is a nice damage on top of that, right? For the helm, we have Anomalous Val Discipline. Or was that actually? Increased damage while on full energy shield, since we're having so much life regen based, since we're Aura Stacker and we're getting vitality and stuff. We're gonna be on full life or on full energy shield most of the time. Anomalous Malevolence is for the skill effect duration for Spark. Then we have Val Haste, doesn't have anything. Divergent Vitality is something that I would really recommend if you're running this build. So usually, if you take a look at the amulet, people always want to have the reduced mana reservation on the Simplex amulet, since it has 25% explicit modifiers, which means you can get up to 7% mana reserve, not like the other Shaper amulets where I only have 6% with catalysts. And here I run Clarity. Most people run Vitality over here, but the thing is, the normal Aura Stacker is a low life character, right? And what the Divergent Vitality is doing is saying 20% increased damage while on full life. Since we are playing CI, we're always on full life, okay? And this 20% increased damage will also apply, or is the base value, and then will be increased by our Aura effect as well. So this gem actually gives us shit tons of damage, and if you have the Clarity or Vitality Aura on your amulet as a stat, as a skill, as an affix actually, you're not gonna get the quality out of it, right? Good. Then for my weapon, it's a Nebulous. I mean, I don't want to go over the detailed on how to build an Aura Stacker, basically. I think there is like thousands of guides out there. It's a Nebulous. We have 90% maximum resistance, so that weapon alone gives me like 570% increased damage on that part, and I got it with multiplier. Better would be spell double damage or something like that. They go for like 100, 150 exalts if you want to upgrade that one. And if you have even more currency, you go for an Explode Nebulous. And if you have even more currency, you go for one with spells double damage and Explode. There is currently one on the market for 15 mirrors. If you have too much currency, you maybe want to buy that one. I don't think it's necessary, but hey. Then we have Anomalous Flame Dash. What is that doing? Travel distance. We have Anomalous Precision for the reduced mana reservation, and Phantasmal Smite because you have Auras, grants 5% attack and cast speed. Then basically you have a lot of auras and you have aura effect. This shit gives you shit tons of cast speed. This is insane. For the shield, I went with just like anything with a corruption, and Socrates gems have 15% reduced mana reservation, right? This shield has 166 energy shield, whatever, you know. I just picked up 15% reduced mana reservation and corrupted for whatever physical damage taken as fire, lightning, cold, or chaos, whatever you can find. Even better if it's double corrupted. You can actually use the shield, the Prison Guardian. So Prison Guardian says that your auras will use blood magic, right? So you cannot use that as a CI character unless your aura reserves 0 mana. Since we have shit tons of reduced mana reservation, there is some auras that doesn't cost any mana. So here, for example, Purity of Fire cost me 2%, and I think I have 1 or 2 auras actually if you would actually do it with an Enlighten or something, it will cost 0%, okay? That means if you are having a Prison Guardian, even though it's blood magic, if the aura doesn't reserve mana, you can still activate it on your life, right? Or basically it doesn't cost any life. So that would work. You would also get, because it's quite easy actually to find Prison Guardians that are double corrupted in this case, right? So if you would search for a shield like that, you always go like physical damage from hits, taking as, and then you need to be make sure that it is as an implicit since it's a corruption, right? So you're just gonna throw all of those in here, put over here the count to 2, and then it would list all the shields that have that, and should be there is a Prison Guardian with 16%. The one mirror, forget about this one. I had one of those shields with like 15% and it cost me, I think, 11x or so. But people like to corrupt Prison Guardians, so it is likely to find those with the physical damage conversion or any other shield. As I said, you don't really need to check how much energy shield does it have and so on, so that would work if you use it on a Prison Guardian. For a rare shield, as I said, you want to have the 15% reduced mana reservation. In here, I'm running the Anomalous Hatred, which has Chill and Freeze, doesn't matter at this part. Divergent Wrath is important because of the reduced mana reservation. It's insanely expensive, like a lot of these gems, because Aura Stackers matter. Aura Stackers, there is Aura Stackers for over 5,000 exalts, and there's a reason why people can bulk in so much currency in those characters. Then we have Anomalous Salutary, gives you critical strike multiplier, since I'm not running Maldigaro, so that's totally fine. For my gloves, you want to have +3 gloves. And if so, or if you can, you want to have spell crit, you want to have cast speed, you want to have ally weakness, for example, temp chains, enfeeble, any aura if you can get. I bought mine for like 3 exalts back in the days. So why +3? Because we need the purities on level 23 to get this 5% maximum resistance, right? You can have +2 gloves if you will use 21 gems, but as I said, Purity, especially Divergent, goes for a shit ton of currency. I think they are like 20, 30 exalts or so. I personally don't want to Val mine, so they're gonna stay at level 20, so I need +3 to get them to level 23 for the maximum resistance here, right? And as I said, whatever you can get on top of that is extra or is plus. It doesn't have to be aura gems, it can also be AoE gems at this part. So you just set up a life surge with +1 and +2 for either aura or AoE, and you should be fine. Then we have here the Divergent because of the damage penetration. It is 10% with the enhanced support, and then will get affected by your aura effect. So with the Purity of Ice and Purity of Elements on both the Divergent version, you're gonna have like 70% elemental penetration or some shit like that. It is going to be ridiculous. So even POB doesn't tell you anymore to run Cold Pen support, right? Then we have Purity of Fire and Purity of Lightning. The Anomalous or the other things doesn't really matter at all at this part, because this one gives you Shock Immunity, this one gives you Ignite Immunity at a certain level, basically, right? But our Divergent or Anomalous Grace gives you also a chance to avoid elemental ailments. So currently, I think I'm immune to Ignite and immune to Chill, or immune to Shock and Ignite, and I'm having 93% on my Chill and Freeze. So I'm not running even any, like, cannot be frozen or something like that. I never get frozen, you know, like, I don't know. And if I would have more aura effect at a certain point, I think it's like in 450% on the next part, we're gonna have 100% chance to avoid elemental ailments just from our Anomalous Grace. Then I have here the Divergent Determination. As I said, this is the base value. This is how you generate armor. Without this gem, you will have no armor, so don't take the Transcendence Keystone. Then we have Divergent Purity of Elements, basically for the pen. Grace and enhanced support to even make those or the quality even more, so you get even more penetration, because this thing actually gives you 24%, and on my +1 gloves this actually gives you 32%. So my Purity of Ice currently has like 52% quality, which has 10% Cold Pen instead of 4%, which is kind of insane. Good for the flasks. Bottled Faith, Cinder Swallow, then we have Taste of Hate, Tears Promise, and Diamond Flask. Whatever I will forget to mention here on the gems, please take a look at the Path of Building. For the MTX, we have the complete Pandemonium set with some Dragon Hunter Aura effect, the new Pandemonium Shield, Heartseeker weapon, the Dreadspire weapon effect, then we have Purple Arc, Dragon Flame Dash, and disabled all the auras because I don't want to look like a freaking Christmas tree when running my aura stacker, right? And Pandemonium's Footprints, the Demon King portal effect, and that's pretty much it here. Fiery Eyes and Pitch Black Bandana. So, last but not least, we're going to take a quick look into my skill tree. What do I have here? This Intuitive Leap. Make sure that you're going to have Charisma and reduced mana reservation and 1% mana reservation if you can afford it. Same as the Might Over Meek over here. This is pretty good because it will make those Aura Effect nodes and the mana reservation nodes even stronger. And if you have a higher level, you can take the charge on kill, so you actually, while mapping, you will generate Power Frenzy and Endurance charges. Then over here, if you play Spark, you can take a Hazardous Research. Just make sure that the Spark duration is the lowest amount because this reduces instead of increases. If you don't play Spark, you can just take another 1% RMR jewel. Then over here we have basically 3 voices set up. Or let's go over here. Militant Faith, I use mine with the effect of non-curse auras for your skills for 10 devotion. Make sure you take these the Templar starting area. God damn it. So you're actually going to have your 50% or at least 50 devotion, so you get 5% aura effect. Without this node, you're going to be on 45%, which is equal to 4% aura effect. And then we have reduced mana cost of skills. Since I'm a Scion, I have like sometimes even when I proc my Val Haste, I have like 15 casts per second, so I need shit tons of mana, right? Then next thing, Zealot's Oath, since we're based on regen, so life regen will count for us. That works with the Vitality. That just makes sure that you're going to regen the ES. And then it's all about stacking as much aura effect as possible. I'm running here 3 voices, 2 5-1s, and 3-1. On the bottom side here, as explained before, these are all 6 nodes for reducing my Determination, Grace, Discipline, Purity, Purity, Purity. On the middle one and on the left one, it's basically just aura effect. If you have the currency, the item level 84 with 6 passive, they go for like 35x or something, just the base. You want to have the 35% increased effect. If you don't, if you run budget, you're just going to take one that has Replenishing Presence as first among equals, as many small passives as possible, and you just want to have as many aura effect as possible. When it comes to the small cluster jewels, everything with intelligence, ES, multiplier, crit strike chance, anything with reduced mana reservation. They started about 10 chaos or so. If you just search for intelligence and 1% RMR, if you want to go better, you're going to take RMR with percent ES. If you want to go even better, 1% RMR, like energy shield and multiplier, but these jewels will cost like 20-30x a piece. And I'm filling out every single spot over here. If you can find one with Corrupted Blood, that would be nice as well. This one cost me, I think, 50 chaos or so, but it was nice. I have some multiplier, which counts for melee weapons, not for my build, doesn't matter. But hey, intelligence, reduced mana reservation, and Corrupted Blood, so that was a pretty nice snipe over there. On the other jewels, this is my Watcher's Eye. As I said, Purity of Elements is the king because it gives you 12% fist damage taken, and while the Purity of Fire, Lightning, and Ice will only get up to like 10%. Then we have, for the other jewels, what is it? Pure Talent, 1% mana reservation. If you can afford it, this will actually give you a lot of attributes as well as some penetration from your Templar starting area that we use with the devotion point here. Then we have the Mantra of Flames, would add fire damage to spells for your arc, basically. This will allow you to ignite the enemy once you crit, and that means that you're gonna get, or the enemy will take 10% increased damage from your Cinder Swallowhorn. That's like quite nice damage DPS buff here. Then we have a Conqueror's Efficiency just for more mana reservation. And I think that's pretty much it when it comes to the jewels, I think. So, what voices jewels do you need? Do you need 7 passives, 5 passives, 3, or even 1? And this is basically just about your level. So I was running 3 5 passive, and I did not hit my 400% breakpoint. You're gonna see that once you have less than 90%. So if I would just remove 1 regret here, or at least 1 skill point. Let me do that real quick. So if I remove this 6% over here, I will drop on 89%. So now I'm below my 400% aura effect. And this is the important thing, right? So either you get voices with less passives that cost shit tons of money, or you're gonna get higher base level, or you're gonna get more effective cluster jewels. So I would say the 400%, this is when you get back to 90%. This will be an insane DPS bonus because not only will we get extra damage from our Nebulous, since we have 1 more maximum resistance, basically, we'll also get stronger in based on defenses, and it's another threshold reached or checkpoint or whatever to have even more damage coming from your auras that you're gonna increase with all of that. Good. Dude, I don't know what else to talk about. I've been literally talking since an hour about this build. If you're still here, then holy shit, you have some free time here. I think all the critical information is said, how I built my character, how I do this with the damage mitigation, and as well as the POB is in the description below if you want to take a look. And yeah, I think this is the end of the Transcendence. This is the end of the build. I mean, I reached level 100. I've been playing this character for like 2 weeks now, combined with the Pathfinder, and I think it's finally time to try out some more fancy builds with all the replica items, but I was just so obsessed with my Transcendence. I want to make it work, and I think I did a pretty good job on that part. And I've seen people do this one on standard after watching my video, and they had ridiculous amounts. Like one guy even reached like 5 million effective HP, and it is kinda insane on that part. Good, I think that's it for today, guys. Thanks for tuning in, thanks for watching, and see you on the next video.